Welcome to another episode of the Nostalgic Nerds podcast, where we take a deep dive into geek culture, tech evolution, and the impact of the past on today's digital world. Today's episode, from Clippy to AI-enabled content creation in corporate America. Join Marc and myself as we discuss the journey of digital assistants from the infamous Clippy to the AI-driven content creators of today. Let's get started. Oh boy, Marc, we're going to go back in time today. We're going to get into the DeLorean with the flux capacitor. And do you remember, who else remembers Clippy?
Yeah,
Clippy.
yeah. I mean, how could you forget Clippy?
Right? That cute little paperclip from Microsoft Office that was way more annoying than helpful, but still it's somehow etched into our memories. Clippy was the epitome of an early digital assistant. Remember, it would say to you, it looks like you're writing a letter. Even when you were just trying to finish a report or close your window, it was like, as soon as you would put your name at the top of something, it would say, you're doing your resume. Would you like my help? And sometimes you were desperate to get out of a job and not write a resume, so you would take them up on it, at which Clippy would then just open up the template, right, Marc? They would just open up the template, and there we were. He was the start of something big in the world of office productivity, but little did we know, Clippy was the first step on a long journey to AI-empowered content creation in corporate America. It's wild to think about it. I mean, Clippy was clunky, annoying, didn't really understand what you were doing half the time, but he was really earnest in trying to be helpful. Fast forward to today, and we've got sophisticated AI that can create content, write emails, draft reports, and even generate marketing materials in a matter of seconds. 17 seems to be the average. Talk about an evolution. We've gone from Clippy basic, almost comedic attempts at being helpful to AI-powered tools, and now we're at the forefront of content creation for businesses. So let's take a step back and look at how we got here from those early days. All right, so let's talk about the good old days, Marc. Clippy was a simple feature in Microsoft Office 97 to 2003. If you were born after 9/11, you are living in a world of Office 365.
Post-Clippy.
Right? If you are living in a world of Office 365, where everything's kind of connected, it all really works seamlessly. That was not our life, and Clippy was the attempt to bridge that horribleness. Clippy was going to save the day, right? It was a cute character designed to be helpful, but most people just found it distracting. He really didn't know anything. He wasn't like Siri or Alexa, where you could ask a question and get an answer. Clippy had one job. I think you're doing something. Let me offer you unsolicited advice. But honestly, Clippy is part of a larger trend where Microsoft wanted to make computing a bit more user-friendly. And even though it didn't work out, it did lay the groundwork for the smarter assets we have today. Clippy's design was driven by the idea that people needed help navigating new software. Back then, the internet was still in its infancy. Most people didn't have a clue how to use these programs. And it was like online help, right, Marc? It's like there's the ability to just help you out, get you started, point you in the right direction so that you knew how to navigate this really complicated world of Windows 95. And say what you want, that wasn't easy. You know what was easy? Mac OS, that was easy. Windows was never easy. That was never an easy platform, no matter how you looked at it, right? And it was designed to help navigate that space. So Clippy was a little guide to help people get started, but let's be honest, he just wasn't cutting it. But his presence made us think about how digital assets could support us. So Marc, talk to me just like out of curiosity, what's your Clippy experience? Because I always left mine open. I was glad for the company, but what was your experience? How do you feel about digital assistants? Because we've had a lot.
So with Clippy, I remember, obviously because we have every single version of the Office, from before there was Office to, current Office 365, but when he first showed up, I was probably running a project or something, and that was the first thing we turned off because it just slowed the machines down so bad. And I think I was doing a project for like Southern California Gas Company or something. So we were running Office clients across a WAN and then a local token ring in the office, and inside an OS2 Warp shell running Windows clients so it was a big, super bad mess. And so everything
Yeah, for all of
you could do,
those who don't know the technical terms he just said, it really is a super bad mess. Like, that's a
yeah,
good way to talk about it. It's a super bad mess. That's a mess.
this any kind of lag on the line, any kind of lag on the machine, and so that was the first thing you turned off. Like, Clippy, die. But some of us like to turn it on and and have fun with it. And I compiled a list of some of the old like Clippy friends.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, he's got little friends, and
I didn't know they were like McNuggets, plastic McNuggets, the ones that look like things. Like, yeah, I didn't know that Clippy was like
did
that.
you
Give me
not?
more.
Yeah, did you not know that there were other
No, what are
like?
there, like
Oh,
lions
really?
and teddy bears and stuff? Like, what is it?
Oh my gosh, I'm
Is
surprised
it
you
the
don't know.
very first emoji ever? Like, what is this?
I mean, they're not really emojis, but so Clippy was the default, and you could change it if you wanted to. Now there were different ways to change it. There were some that were built in, but then there were also like, gosh, what was the name of that product? You could get like an add-on thing to
Oh, like you
then
could get the floating
yeah,
toasters
like
with the
downloadable,
wings.
yeah,
Yeah.
DLC, downloadable content.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so there was the dot, and it was literally like a little ball, and the dot came over from Microsoft Bob because it replaced the dog Power Pup or Rover in Microsoft Bob, and then so that one was one. There was one called F1, and he was a little robot. He was like a little cartoon robot, and so what was funny about F1, he was like no, he had arms but no legs.
That
F1,
way he couldn't get away.
well, each one had kind of a little character, not just the cartoon animation, but the way that they would respond and the way that they would talk to you and the little balloons, the little bubbles and stuff.
Yeah.
So they all, and so his was, gosh, I can't,
In binary?
I,
Because he's a
you
robot.
know,
He's in binary.
you know what? He might have had binary, but there was a whole list of them. Yeah, and there was some that I was telling you about, Will, before we started recording. He came over from Microsoft Bob. It was like a little William Shakespeare. There was one called Genius, and that was like an Einstein, thing. But then, like the ones that were, it's just like no soul at all. Was like the Office logo. There was literally like the little Office logo just bouncing around and spinning.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a Mother Nature one. There was a little cat. There was, yeah. So there's a
All
bunch of
equally
these.
stupid and equally annoying. Because in the end, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter how cute it is. It doesn't know what it's doing.
Yeah, right, exactly. They were, they all kind of came off of the same, triggers and things like that. But, these were not the only kind of first digital assistants. We had some pre-smartphone and, different assistants. And, they're kind of, maybe I'm maybe stretching it a little bit because they're not exactly like, Clippy or whatever. But in the 90s, IBM had a program called ReacTOR.
Wow.
It was yeah, it was actually one of the very first natural language help systems for enterprise software. So it literally you could interact and and ask it questions. So that was kind of interesting. Apple had Newton, and now
Yeah.
Newton was interesting because it was both a hardware platform and a software thing. It's not exactly an assistant like in what we think of as an AI sense, but it had handwriting recognition, and it marketed at least as a digital helper.
It's one of
Um,
my favorite gags from The Simpsons.
oh yeah,
Yeah, when he says beat up Martin and Newton says back eat up Martha. Like,
yeah,
because that's how bad voice recognition was on that thing.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was famously bad. Famously
yeah.
bad.
Well, the handwriting recognition was just like, oh, it's so
Famously
cute
bad.
that you tried.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Ask Jeeves. Like Ask Jeeves was an interesting one because it was more like not really like in your software, but it was web search. I wonder what happened to Ask Jeeves. I don't know. Yeah.
You keep talking. I'll
Uh,
look it up, see if it's still around.
oh, there you go. There was okay. The one that I thought was really interesting is a little bit later to the party. Came around 2000. Now we've never talked about the instant message craze, but remember back in the olden days, when you had an actual chat client like AOL Messenger, MSN Messenger, there was a little like buddy called Smarter Child that you could literally chat with and give it, give news and weather and play games. And it was kind of like, I don't know, maybe like a proto Siri because it could actually do some, simple things. There's a bunch of these, but you could definitely see the progression where there's an embedded piece of software, like a Clippy or whatever, and you could do various simple tasks with that, and then those expanded to let's say more language, or natural language interactions. As that progresses, you have things that are like pre-generative AI, Alexa, for example, early stuff in Alexa. My favorite was Cortana, which is the Microsoft one. It was kind of its second go around as a digital assistant. It was more enterprise focused. Siri, obviously, kind of older implementations of Siri were, there's nothing particularly generative, I think, in the kind of modern sense, but yeah, there's been a bunch of these, but I think I have a soft spot in my heart for maybe Will, Will and Power Pup.
Again, I
Yeah.
used to leave mine open just to see it wave at me. I mean, doing data entry is so boring. You're just like, hey, I'm good. Hey, I'm good.
Yeah. I know they would like bounce around and stuff. For me, I just couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. But I think what's kind of interesting in this era of computing was, and we were just talking about it a few minutes ago, is the wizards, right? And Clippy, while not exactly like one of these installation wizards or setup wizards or configuration wizards or whatever, it was an attempt, as you said, to try to make the interface more user friendly, right? Because you were like, you were coming out of an era where everything was terminal, right? Command line. I mean, I even worked at a place, even while we were installing Windows 95, I still had customers that wanted, DOS, Word and DOS Word, Word Perfect and, Word
Yeah.
Star even. So you should have this kind of world where, all of a sudden there's graphics and images and all of that. How do you install a piece of software? How do you configure a piece of software if it's not at the command line? And, the answer was wizards. So everything became a wizard. And it really changed. And I think ultimately this is why, maybe it's a topic for another time, but like, remember the old religion around Novell, like,
Oh, God.
you know, right? Netware, you had to have the special robes and you had to wear the cloak, right? And you had to burn the
Okay,
incense
for
and the
those of you
candles and all this stuff.
who don't know what we're talking about, Novell was the operating system before, at the same time Windows is around, right? And so what they were trying to do is to say to you, like, stay on Novell. You don't need to get onto Windows. Like, just stay here.
Right.
You don't need the fat partitions. Just stay here. And eventually just Microsoft just takes them over. And
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. We worshipped at the altar of Novell for years, saying like, this is how it works. And then no, one day we thought that fat partition works better. We're going.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting.
You democratize, system administration, and the mechanism by which that democratization happens is these smart assistants. Now, they may not have had little cute little, icons and stuff, but there's a image, it's a graphic, there's a UI. It's not, this sort of esoteric command line interface. And that's ultimately, what changes there. But, that automation and of process, that automation of, development, I think is really key. And it's this sort of really short time period because we wouldn't even think about doing it that way now, right? It's how do you install an app? You go to the App Store and you hit install.
Look how long it took us to get away from the bare metal, though. I mean, for a long time, like you were coding. So when I say bare metal, I mean like you are coding really close to the hardware. Like there's not a lot of software going on in between there. Like by the time we get to Windows, you have an operating system, then you have an application, and then you have a model language, and then you have Visual Basic, and then you can code, right? But when you were doing COBOL, dude, you were like
Yeah.
way down that stack. You were at the bottom. You were coding way at the bottom there. You're coding the machine, right? And so like the farther we got away from that, I feel like clearly the more complicated the stack got, but that wasn't even the problem. Resource intensive crap started to really happen once we were coding in C++, right? Like that's where memory leaks were starting to show up, and overuse of processor, and bad code actually meant bigger hardware. And like for me, like that was a big turning point, like getting off the mainframe and onto that kind of stuff. Because it was like, man, now we really do tax stuff and I really can see it. And I am responsible for fixing it. The mainframe didn't do that crap. And if it did, it wasn't on me, right? Like if it did, it didn't matter. I can't control it. But once you've gone to client server and now you have an LA office who has an IT person, well, now it's on you, Renee. You got to solve this. Why can't I print? Oh, I should turn off Clippy. Maybe now you can print. The other one was like uninstall front pages extensions, and then you can run your PC. Stop. Like that thing must have blown everything up every day. Front pages extensions was the next thing that came out. Yeah.
But I think that shift, right? You go, here's a desktop thing, that helps you with some, in theory, it's supposed to help you poorly write your resume or whatever. To then, you've got a web agent like a Jeeves, right?
Oh, by the way, ask.com is Ask Jeeves, just so you know. It's still out there. You can still ask it questions. It's just the butler's no longer there. So you just get that.
Jeeves was a dapper looking butler dude.
Yeah, he was.
And then, that asking, kind of asking the web to, I've now got a mobile thing, Siri or whatever, a digital assistant on your mobile, to home, to IoT, with an Alexa. My kids have the home pods, so they've got Siri on the home pods, to literally everywhere with something like a chat GPT. So, you have this sort of progression of these agents over time, and they, relatively small scope to now quite large content creation and, everything in between scope.
So let's keep going, right? So now we're here. We're back to the present. We're back to the future. We're back to the present. And we're seeing AI used in ways that we never imagined back in Clippy's heyday, right? Corporate America has fully embraced AI-driven content creation. Think about how many tools we are now using AI to help create marketing materials, social media posts, emails, even entire blog articles. It's pretty wild how far we've come. I even use ChatGPT just to, I use the bigger model, though. Lately I'm using the number 5, but I use that to help format this. I write this, but I ask ChatGPT to format this so that we can get it right every time. So even this podcast is using some form of AI to enable us to deliver this every week and get ahead of it, because it's a lot of writing, right? It's not just content creation, it's content optimization. AI tools can analyze data, figure out what tone to use, and even prioritize content based on target audience. You're seeing a complete shift in how businesses are leveraging AI, not just for efficiency, but for scale, right, Marc? I mean, we are really starting to take this and say, no, this is a digital assistant. Forget the, beat up, Martin. Forget the
cartoon
Clippy.
clip.
Yeah. I mean, forget all of it, right? Like at the end of the day, we end up right where we are right now. Things that are agentic AI. It's literally an agent. It's a bot. It's going to go do something for me. I'm done writing this report. I want the agent to take that report, assign it to an email, send that email to my editor, my second editor, and my RD. I want you to send it all out to the right people. So all I have to do is say, I'm done. And all the communication happens through an agentic AI. Like that to me is like the difference that I live with every day, right? This idea that I can create these agents to do a lot of the other crap work that I really suck at and don't feel like doing, and it's terrible, and I have anxiety and everything else, right? So I mean, that's where we are today, and it's just going to get more. Salesforce just laid off 4,000 people. And their CEO said it was thanks to AI. And so if that's it, if agentic AI can really do that much work, then how do we, first of all, like, what do we do with that, right? And is it good for corporations to think AI first in that way?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And we should probably talk at some point about what I call the natural laws of production. And one of those natural laws of production is about automation when you're building, whether it's manufacturing of a physical object or software development. There's automation in play, and And I think that these, as you said, these agents, they're able to automate tasks that are, lower down the priority chain, right? I'm not going to say they're simple. I'm not going to say they're complex. They're things that can be easily automated.
Mhm.
They're automatable. And I think that's that differentiator, right? Is that, we're right at kind of at the beginning of the tasks that can be easily automated. And we've seen this in other verticals, for centuries, right? What are the things that can be automated? And those are the things that are first to go out of the production chain. So if we think about corporate America and productivity, or corporate Britain, or corporate whatever, the enterprise, what are those things that can be easily automated? And that breakthrough is the large language model and natural language processing that we didn't quite have with some of these previous agents, whether it's Clippy or Jeeves or a Siri or Alexa or whatever. They're not quite there, right? They're not as boundless as some of these LLMs. And I think that's that differentiator. you know that agent doesn't get tired, right? It can do this 24/7. And the impact on productivity there is enormous. I was literally talking about this with somebody at the office today. And one of the use cases that I've used this in before, and I work with IBM and some of the others on this, is taking my legacy code in COBOL and then trying to either A, understand it, or B, convert it to something else. That would take engineer or a set of engineers and a systems analyst or whoever. That would take them weeks, months, even years sometimes to do this on legacy code that's 30-40 years of work. And now you're getting to the point, and it's not perfect, right? It's not 100%, but it's certainly better than just throwing 100 people at it and trying to get something out that's useful. You could take a routine in a COBOL program, and it'll document it for you. That's super powerful because the documentation is probably gone, or the code has been modified so many times over the last 30-40 years that the original documentation is no good anymore. So how do you learn how to change it, how to do it? Well, you assign it to an agent, and that agent does that work for you.
I think there's a total cost of ownership with AI that doesn't exist with Clippy, though. Like Clippy, if you think about it, like the simple agent that Clippy was, and he was a process hog. I won't say he wasn't,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
And maybe if that was a problem, you bought a machine big enough for Clippy. I don't know. I mean, if he was really important to you, maybe you'd buy more RAM. But but I think that would be its only overhead. There's no security stuff with that. There's no, ethics stuff with that. It was in a much simpler time and a much simpler thing. When I look at Agentic AI and I look at even any other AI, first, it's like security first, which I think we've lost sight of. We don't do a good job at that. That's terrible, but we don't do a good job of it. It's almost like we're like, no. You know what? It's so new. We don't even know. No, we know. We know, right? Like, if that's not true, we know. The total cost of ownership of AI includes security, it includes privacy, it includes ethics, and it includes legal. The total cost of ownership of Clippy is Clippy.
Right.
So, I mean, that's how you have to think. Like, with great power comes great responsibility. And we are not who we were back in Windows 95 days, right? We weren't constantly trying to hack one another. We weren't constantly looking to, spearfish everybody and their mother, although that did start early. I'm not going to lie. We were giving money to, Nigerian princes way, way back in the beginning, right? We talked about that. Email chains were crazy and it happened a lot, right? So yeah, I think there's a total cost of ownership of AI that didn't exist earlier in the era. And it's only going to get more complicated, and it's only going to get it's going to get worse, right? We're going to have more regulation. We're going to have more compliance problems. And I was looking at the history of regulation. Can I tell you, we've never once been ahead of anything. Not once.
Yeah, of course not. Never.
Not
Never.
once.
No.
right?
Yeah.
We let it get ahead of us. And then we're like, whoa, 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 Captain, got to send that back in. And then you got to fight over it when you could have just put the guardrails in and said, now you can go as fast as you can, right? Like,
Yeah.
but if you don't put the regulatory guardrails in place, which the current administration doesn't seem like it wants to do, it wants to open everything up for AI. It's like, all right, we're going to have to really work hard to pull it back in because it's going to need it. At any rate, so now the future, what's the future for AI-driven content creation? Like, what's next? And honestly, where we're headed, imagine that AI can take a brand's entire voice and persona and then create content that resonates with audiences no matter the platform and no matter the audience. Want to reach moms? Your soap's all about the baby. You want to reach teenagers? The soap's all about the boyfriend. You want to reach middle-aged women? It's all about not getting itchy. Because middle-aged women, once you hit menopause, all you do is get itchy. Like that you can take one brand and tell AI, create commercials for me for every one of those different personas, and now send it out over all the social media. And now I'm telling a story to 50 different groups with 50 different things by pushing just one button. Like if you ever thought of like what was going to make that thing brand risk, like what was going to introduce brand risk in a way like nothing we've ever seen, for me, this is it. This is it. It's AI and advertising. Like we're in trouble. Like we're already in trouble. So we might even see content that's custom tailored to real time for every individual user. So now it's me. I mean, you definitely know enough about me. Like it's all over the place. So yeah, you can tailor a conversation to, hey, Renee, I saw yesterday you were talking about eggplant, which is what I call my dog in front of Alexa. I've been doing it for a year. You know what, at Christmas time, you know what Alexa said to me? Hey, Renee, maybe eggplant would love a sweater. So it knew eggplant was the dog. I wasn't fooling the AI one bit, right? So like, it's that kind of stuff. Like advertising can get that personal at scale. That's crazy. Yeah. And then I would also say that coming against your brand, you know, I'm going to compete against you. So I'm going to say bad things about you. It can happen just as fast, just as wide, and just as personalized. So when we think about like, you know, AI could know what you want before you even know what you want. And it's really scary. And I guess the other thing I would say is like, what we don't think about too, Marc, is copyright, right? Like, I wrote a musical about the Donner Party. First of all, you know, I'm obsessed with the Donner Party. So it would make perfect sense.
It's a recurring theme.
Yes, right. That this is what I would do. But I didn't. I gave it to AI and I said, write me a musical number in the style of Stephen Sondheim about the Donner Party. This is the opening number, chorus and everything. I need a big showstopper. It's the first number. I got to tell you, dude, it was good. It was good. Like I'd go see that show. I might even learn that song. It was good. I was stunned. It was stunned. But who owns it? Do I own it? It was my idea. Does the AI platform own it? Because I did give it to them and they used the algorithm. Is it the guy who did the algorithm? Or is it Stephen Sondheim's estate?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think he owns it and he would be ashamed that he did.
Yeah.
Right?
Look,
So while it's really exciting, I'm terrified. Get me off the cliff. Get me off the ledge, dude. I'm terrified.
I don't know if I can get you off the cliff here on this one. I think there's... Yeah, it's definitely exciting, right? We're seeing just tons of content creation in both good and bad ways. And I think one of my daughters is an artist and, you know, it's a little bit scary because she's going to art school and...
Hey.
You know...
Hey, fine arts is good. We both
Fine
know
arts
it.
is good, right? I have a lit degree, right?
I'm an actor. It's all
You're
good.
an actor, right? We did just fine.
Right.
But... You know, it's a little bit scary because, you know, you're going to school and you're thinking, well, you know, I'm a great artist and she's really good.
She is very good.
But then now I can ask an agent to go and do something for me. And, you know, certainly in the corporate context, I totally understand. Like it was, you know, nobody was hiring art grad students. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but certainly in droves, you didn't see corporations hiring art grad students to create, you know, marketing material and an artistic, you know, campaign for whatever, right? It's just not happening. Corporate art is generally crappy and, you know, kind of very purposeful and, you know, bland and, you know, whatever. It often takes on the caricature of the corporation cult, whatever the corporate
Right.
culture is.
Yeah.
And so I think that an AI agent doing that probably is fine. It's probably a very good use case. And if you want to hire an artist to do that or refine that work, I think that's perfectly acceptable and probably a good thing. But, to your example around the Donner Party and those are the questions, right? Who owns the IP? Who's the developer of that? Who did the model? Is the model provider the owner then? That's a really tricky thing, and I don't think we have enough legal precedent to really understand that. And surely the regulatory landscape isn't great either. And we even have scenarios where original content copyright owners are not comfortable with feeding language LLMs, and are suing these guys to say, you created your LLM with my data, that's wrong. But then the courts are essentially just saying, well, too bad. Sorry about that. What do you do?
Yeah.
This is this is
I
crazy
feel like
stuff.
music figured it out in the 80s and 90s when people were sampling stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then so it finally got to, no, if you're going to deliberately use the original artist's work, then you pay for the use of that work, period. Doesn't matter if you repurposed it for something else, you just paid for it.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they figured it out. And listen, if you wanted the best language lit model on Earth as a small language model, and you wanted to curate every known book in the, Library of Congress, then you pay for every one of those books you use. That's what it costs to start that LLM model, right? Or that that small language model. Like, I don't know why you should have to. And you know what? And then the other thing I would say is publishing houses should have licensing for exactly that. Because in the end, it doesn't end up being, I can download War and Peace. I can't ask for it like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, this is it comes back to technology and scale, right? Like, sure, I can go to the Library of Congress and I can, get a book, and I personally can use it, put AI off to the side for a second. I can read that book. I can, look at other articles. I can look at other books. I can, create an opinion, if you're thinking about literary criticism or something like that. I can even write something in the style of those things, right? But
that's what freaks me out. I could write a book in the style of Edgar Allan Poe.
Sure, but I can't do that en masse, right? I can't suddenly publish easily, like there's a time factor there. Like, I can write an Edgar Allan Poe styled book using an AI method in, seconds, minutes, maybe even hours, and it would be ready to go. Not only that, I can now write scripts to do self-publishing on Amazon. I can, like, this whole agentic process gets to the point where the scale of it is different than me as an individual. So I think that, it should be part of the consideration for a publishing house to say, you want to use my content, for my authors. Okay, fine. What are you going to do with it? Here's the model, to pay for that. And if you're going to use that model to then develop other things in a commercial way, like, it doesn't feel fair to basically, pretend like you're an individual user that just read the book.
Right.
You're doing something different with that. And I think that the pricing model should reflect that. And the reward back to the original owner of the content, should reflect that as well. And I just don't think we're there yet. Like, we're not even close to these kinds of discussions from a legal, compliance regulatory framework perspective.
So, it makes me think about Tracy Chapman saying that this year was the most money she ever made on Fast Car, the song Fast Car. She's
Really?
like, this year was the year she made the most on it. And it was because a country western singer covered it. And like, it was the first time that song was heard in that genre by those people. Like, and they
Right.
loved it. They loved it. That version sat
Well,
on the top of the #1 charts for weeks. And it's a really good version of it. And she had royalties on it. She said, "I've made $5.5 million this year on that song
good
with
for
that
Tracy Chapman.
artist." Right. And I'm like, yeah, because she's like in her 60s and like she's too old to do this shit anymore. So she's really happy. But yes, that's it. Right. But she gets to reap the benefits of a really well written song because it was re-recorded by someone else. I think the same thing should happen for content creators. But then we'll get right back to it, right? Without the content creators, we have nothing to feed the LLM model, right? So in the end, the model needs new stuff all the time. Like right now, we've hit an LLM plateau. Like it doesn't have anything left to learn. And we can't create it fast enough for it to learn any better. Right. So now it's just going to it's like a souffle, dude. Like it's meringue. If we beat it way too much, it's going to collapse.
Too much is going to flat.
Yeah, right. Like, I feel like we've hit this plateau where maybe it's about the small language models now, highly curated, super specific, downloaded for a very specific reason. Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had this discussion with the guys in Boston at IBM, last year when I was there. And I think they're of the same agreement that the kind of we've gotten to the point where literally everything that's written can be consumed in an LLM, and it's already been done.
Right.
So it's not really about doing it again. That's not going to yield much benefit. So the next thing is, well, I want to build a small model on COBOL for this program and use that, and then that's going to yield much better results than using a generalized LLM for everything to then give me code responses.
Yeah, see, I feel like that's where we're headed. I say it all the time to my, like, I don't know if you people know, but I'm an analyst, independent analyst in the governance, risk, and compliance software market. And I tell that market all the time, listen, the small language models is where it's going to be, because we in compliance cannot make mistakes. We can't make legal mistakes. We can't make regulatory mistakes. We can't make, those have to be highly curated data sets that can't wander. They can't hallucinate. They can't get lost in the woods. Like, they have to be really, really strong models. If we're going to rely on them, the external auditors are going to rely on them, and ultimately Wall Street's going to rely on them. If that's how that's going to go, then we are stuck in small language models. I would never pat you on the back for saying, I integrated to OpenAI. I think that's really dangerous. Like, I don't think there's enough risk controls in place to think that's okay for a second.
Well, not just risk, but ethical. There's bias issues, transparency, accountability. Like, I wasn't worried about Clippy being biased in a decision, around writing a letter. That's not an issue. But because it's advanced to that point, like, well, guess what? Maybe there's tone bias. Maybe there's cultural bias. Maybe I'm using one of these models for risk scoring for mortgages, and, somebody doesn't get a mortgage because, or a loan that they need to keep their business open or whatever. Like, those sorts of things, it's becoming harder and harder to be transparent about that as I feel like almost, if we wind the clock back, probably 20 years now, like, there was a point where the complexity of the architectures that we were working on it was more than one person's brain could contain, and I feel like we're kind of in that scenario now, with risk modeling and, accountability and biasing, and like now I'm sort of letting the AI model do its thing, and it's no longer transparent, right? And in fact, and I won't say which banks, right? But there are several banks that have decided to let some of these vendors, whether it's OpenAI or others, be the model for a chatbot or be the model for a decision engine. And, these vendors, they change the model and don't tell you.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? And it changes the performance of the products that are based on these models. That's, that's a tricky bit, right? That's like, how do you explain that to a regulator? Well, and I've been in those conversations.
Yeah,
and
you
it's a really
can't. You say the
difficult thing.
third party did it, and then they say, well, why weren't you managing that third party better? And you're
Yeah.
like, well, I didn't know they were going to do this. Well, like, you should have known that they were going to do that. Like, you should
exactly.
be, I wouldn't have, I'm a former auditor. I would have no pity on that.
Yeah.
You should have.
Clippy wasn't doing that. Clippy wasn't making those sorts of decisions. I think that human interaction, that human discussion, that human, touch, whether it's content creation or risk decisioning or whatever, AI is going to be a partner. It's not going to be a replacement. It can't be.
Yeah, that's a good point. It'll be more of a partner than a tool. It'll work alongside the content creators, allowing them to work faster, smarter, and more creatively. It won't just be churning out content. It'll be about enhancing the creative process and pushing the boundaries of what we can do with the data. And who knows, like maybe in the next few years, we will look back on Clippy and laugh thinking it was just the beginning. It's wild to think how far we've come.
Yeah, I think it's super wild. We laughed about Clippy. Like, what are we going to laugh about next? Are we going to laugh about
Bigfoot
4.0
slop? It makes me laugh every day. Bigfoot, like raiding a camp. Like, it's more than I can handle. Bigfoot slop, AI slop is more than any. I just love it. Yes.
Grok is the best at giving the sick burns, right? Like,
right. Yes. It is good at that. It's an exceptionally good troll. Grok.
Yeah.
It was trained well. Okay, so I was just going to wrap up for today. Is there anything?
Oh, well, then there you go. Then
let's wrap up. Let's wrap for today's episode of the Nostalgic Nerds podcast. We could talk forever, but we're not going to. Thanks for joining us. We explored the evolution from Clippy to AI-driven content creation. We hope you enjoyed the trip down memory lane and maybe even learned something about how AI is shaping the future of work in corporate America. Thanks for tuning in, you nerds. I love that you're here. Be sure to subscribe for more stories about tech, nostalgia, and the future of everything digital. Stay curious, stay critical, and of course, stay nerdy. Marc, thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. Don't forget Powerpuff. Keep it,
Don't forget to
shout out to Powerpuff.